A few days ago, I published a video on the IRAS clawback of the 99-1 tax avoidance loophole. And right now, we're looking at $60 million potentially being clawed back by IRAS. And the amount of cases affected is only 166 cases, but each of them potentially could be hit with about $350,000 to $500,000 of ABSD clawback. And that's a very, very big number. So we have spoken quite at length about this thing. So watch my previous video. But now a lot of people are beginning to worry, could decoupling be next? Okay, so let's watch on, shall we? First of all, let's ask ourselves, what's decoupling and what does it got to do with avoidance of ABSD? Let's use a diagram to analyze this. So in a case where there are two 1 million property, let's talk about a couple which involves individual A and B, maybe husband and wife. Most likely, most of the case, they're husband and wife. They first buy a property, right? They first buy a property, and in most cases, they own 50-50. That's only fair for husband and wife, right? And along the years, they have actually prospered and things like that. They decided that, they want to buy a second property, but here comes ABSD, which will hit them with a 20% surcharge of stamp duty. So what this arrangement would be, person B sells her share or his share to the partner, right? To the spouse. And now let's say the husband right now owns 100% of the property, and now person B owns 0 property. So the wife could now legally buy a second property and incur no ABSD as well. Okay. And now she owns 100%. So individual A, which is the husband, owns 100% and pay no ABSD, and individual B, which is the wife, owns 100% and own ABSD. It's perfectly legal because the husband only owned 1 property, the wife also only owned 1 property, and in this case, it has to be a private property because HDB requires a family unit to own together. So with decoupling, the amount of ABSD paid is 0. It's also worthwhile to note that these percentages could change, right? It could be 99-1, it could be 90-10 or 50-50, whatever. It doesn't matter, right? The intent is to transfer the entire share, okay, of the wife, okay, to the husband or the other way around, and then free up this spouse name from any property ownership and free for her to go and buy another property. And clearly, right, this measure favors those who are well-to-do, and people who are not so well-to-do will find it very difficult to do this. So this couple right now owns 2 property. In this case, we assume that it's $1 million. They pay 0 property. So how does this avoid ABSD? Assuming that the couple, the husband and wife, previously do not own a property, they come together and buy a property together. And the ABSD they paid was 0 for the first property, right? And now both of them right now have a co-ownership to this property. Whatever the share may be, now they go and buy a second property, they'll be hit with a 20% surcharge, okay, of stamp duty, and that's $200,000. So without decoupling, they would have to pay $200,000 for ABSD, but with decoupling right now, they separate their names. They now can buy a second property without paying ABSD. This is how the ABSD is being avoided through decoupling. So what's the parallel with 99-1 arrangement that kena the IRAS clawback? So some people say 99-1 arrangement and decoupling is totally 2 different things. One is clearly tax avoidance, close borderline tax evasion, but this is perfectly legal, perfectly acceptable whatsoever. Let's see the parallel, okay? I think we must rise above it and see the spirit of both arrangements. Both of them, while technically legal, both of them are trying to avoid ABSD. That's the commonality between them. Both of them are designed to avoid ABSD, or else why you want to do decoupling for? You're just trying to siam ABSD, right? But a lot of people say, as long as it's legal, it is okay, right? Well, 99-1 was legal, so is many other loopholes legal. That's why they are called loopholes. They are not called illegal. Well, let's watch on and see and hear my argument. Don't get emotional. Hear my arguments to understand why you're actually at risk. I've spoken to quite a few insiders to know that actually this is an issue, okay, that requires a second look because the spirit has been violated. So first of all, we must first understand what is tax avoidance. Tax avoidance involves an arrangement that is artificial, contrite, and has little or no commercial substance that's designed to obtain a tax advantage that is not intended by the government. So tax avoidance is different from tax evasion. Tax evasion is clearly illegal. Tax avoidance is legal, but yet, you obtain a tax advantage that is not intended by the government. So tax avoidance is frowned upon. Tax evasion, okay, is slammed upon, right? So I think that's a very, very clear thing we need to understand. And right now, 991, decoupling are all on the tax avoidance side. We must first understand the policy intent of the government when they implemented ABSD. Why do they do that? They implemented ABSD is because they want to moderate demand for residential private property market so as to cool down the private property market. This will help to promote a stable and sustainable growth in the property market. So this policy intent is very important and sacred. So the national priority of the government is not to let Singaporeans have a second property for investment. That's not the government intent. They're not stopping it, but that's not intent. But the single biggest intent of the housing policy of Singapore government, whether is it private or HDB, is to ensure that property is meant for owner occupation first, okay, and not meant for investment. Investment is not a priority for the government. So the national agenda is to ensure property is first for owner occupation. Now, they're not outright against for investment, but the priority is for owner occupation. And there was an overheated private property market and the HDB market, by the way. And they have used the ABSD to cool things down. So we must first understand that this is the policy intent, okay? If the loophole violates the spirit of this policy intent, that gets in trouble. So the litmus test really is the owner staying there or not staying there? As simple as that, right? If the owner is staying there, then I think there's less of issue. But if the owner is not staying there, okay, clearly the owner is buying it for a second property in order for investments, then that's a very different thing altogether. Then it violates the spirit of the policy intent. And that's what happened to 991, okay? So my guess is that government is likely to frown upon the decoupling. Whether they'll take action or not, that's a different thing altogether. So a lot of people said, Mr. Loo, you're just fear-mongering, right? You're anti-property all the while and things like that. Decoupling is perfectly legal, acceptable government, right? They got lawyers, to stand by them and things like that whatsoever. Well, if it's that legal, then you shouldn't be afraid, right? This matter has been raised in Parliament before, and let's hear what the government has to say. So in May 2023, Mr. Yip Hong Weng, which is one of our members of Parliament, actually asked the DPM and Finance Minister, which is, by the way, our future Prime Minister, Mr. Lawrence Wong, okay, whether the Ministry or IRAS will tighten the process involving decoupling by families or couple who wish to buy an additional property. And what did DPM and Finance Minister Lawrence Wong say? He actually said this, I quote, "The government recognizes that families and individuals may enter into various property purchases, that means more than one, and ownership arrangements for different reasons and needs, and taking account the tax and non-tax consequences. Depending on arrangement, additional buyer stamp duties may be payable, right? May be payable, right? So I'll read the last sentence. The government will continue to watch the residential property market closely and consider appropriate adjustment needed to promote a stable and sustainable property market. The government has outright said that, we will basically watch and see. That's basically on decoupling. They didn't say outright, this is acceptable, okay? But they'll say they watch and see. In fact, they explicitly say that depending on how the arrangement, ABSD may be payable, right? Just they haven't made you pay yet. So this is not I say, this is DPM say, right? He's going to be the next Prime Minister, no? So let's take a look at what are the precedents and commonalities. Let's see the precedent first, okay? Well, decoupling is not the first loophole that is going to be considered by government to be closed. SA shielding, for example, was a legal but clearly a loophole. It was first raised in government. Government said they will monitor, and guess what? After monitoring, after a while, they plugged the loophole. How many people affected? A lot. A lot of people affected, right? And the government didn't care. But in the same breath, in the same stroke, the government also closed the SA after 55 years old, okay? And it was perfectly legal, not even a loophole, but it was a policy error that needs to be corrected. It's not a loophole, but policy error that you cannot have high liquidity and high interest rate, right? It's a policy error, and they changed that. And you know what? Hundreds of thousands of people affected. Hundreds of thousands of people affected, but the government has no fear of masses of people affected, right? And we'll talk about this thing in a short while. And next came the 991 ABSD clawback. It was a clear legal tax avoidance. It's legal, right? It was a tax avoidance, not tax evasion. The loophole is closed. 166 cases only. So even though a small group of people is affected, the government still hit clawback $350,000 or more. I think the maximum they'll pay is up to $500,000, you know. It's a hell of money, hell of money. So with this legal but policy intent was violated, okay, they also whack, right? What do you think will happen to decoupling? They're all legal as well, right? All legal as well. And I think this time around, compared to 91 ABSD clawback, a lot more people are affected. Some commonalities between all these I've analyzed, which I think is quite interesting. The government does not seem to be care of electoral repercussions. They're not afraid that people will go to the polls and vent their anger out, right? They are just focused on doing the right thing. The government just want to do the right thing. This part of it, remember during the SA closure, I was quite upset with them. But I must say that, you know, they really are focused on getting the right thing done, which I think is quite important, okay? The second thing is that for the SA closure and SA shielding, 99.1 decoupling, they all have two commonalities, right? These four things have two commonalities. Number one, this policy favors the rich. Do you notice that? Only the rich can do this. SA shielding, you got a hell of money, right? In your special account. Next, SA closure, only the well-to-do affected, right? 991 clearly, you know, favors the private property owners that can afford a second property. And then decoupling comes in, right? They all favors the rich. And second is that all this policy violates the policy intent. It did not, you know, violate the policy. It violates the spirit of the policy. So with this, you know, these two policies, all these are two commonalities. And the last one is just my observation, right? The person who closed all these loopholes was DPM and Finance Minister Lawrence Wong, right? Something interesting, he will soon be a prime minister. Do you think his power to execute all this closure loophole is weakened or strengthened when he becomes a PM, right? I don't know. You analyze for yourself, okay? So then how, right? Then how? Well, in my humble opinion, okay, I think that decoupling is deemed more legal than 991 ABSD avoidance. My guess, okay, my guess is that it will be, if there's going to be a loophole closure, I think it's less likely to kena ABSD clawback, okay? But what they may do is that if you have done it before, you know, your grandfather, you know, but for people who are going to do it moving forward, they will plug the loophole. This is my guess, okay? But I'm not the government, and neither do I have the mind share of the government in this aspect. So could only speculate on this one. Now, I know that this is a painful, emotional topic for many people who have done decoupling. I know, highly emotional topic, okay? It's going to invoke a lot of angst. Angry comments, rude comments, sometimes even vulgar comments towards Mr. Loo, right? I just want to say that, you know, let's discuss this gentlemanly or gentlewomanly or gentleladily in our comment section, okay? And let's discuss this in the Telegram group as well. I think we can agree to disagree and don't need to be so emotional about this. If you disagree, I'm happy to hear your comments, and then let's have a discussion on this. The last comment I want to say is this, some people might say, Mr. Loo, you are trying to provoke the government to close down and whack the ABSD. I don't think I have that power to do that. Don't be silly, okay? If I have the power to do that, government would not have closed the SA account after 55 years old, right? Okay. So let's watch and see, right? I could be wrong, right? I could be wrong, right? So with this, as usual, thank you for watching, okay? Let's continue to have this discussion in our comment section, and like and subscribe the YouTube channel, and join us on Telegram group at Loo1865. We're going to discuss this excitingly, and see you in a day or two. Okay, bye-bye.